Hello folks, this is Steve AB4L. It might as well be summer. I get the fan on. This is like, haven't I heard of something like this before? I'll show you what I mean in the end. Now, nothing in this episode is a promotion nor is a recommendation. Now, my tab is /.org. I got another tab there. You'll see why. So I'm scrolling down, and it mentions one of my favorite banks. When I worked for that big internationally known, internationally operating IT company, I worked with them, helping them. They wouldn't listen. But finally they had to. And bingo. Wells Fargo fires employees for faking work by simulating keyboard activity. Apparently this is from Yahoo/Finance. Well, that makes sense. Wells Fargo, if I'm not mistaken, is the largest commercial bank in the world. Wells Fargo and Company fired more than a dozen employees last month after investigating claims that they were faking work. Oh, that's new. Most read from Bloomberg. Wells Fargo fires over a dozen for simulation of keyboard activity. The staffers, all in the firm's wealth and investment management unit. No, not the one where you go into a teller or do your credit card online. No. These are the people, now think about it. The firm's, you'll see why I'm emphasizing this in a minute. The firm's wealth and investment management unit. Yeah, I got $1 million I don't know what to do with. What should I put it in? Should I go to the stock market? Should I buy property? Should I blah, 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 blah? The Wells Fargo Wealth and Investment Management Unit were discharged after review of allegations involving simulation of keyboard activity, creating impression of active work. According to disclosures filed with the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. This is not some Now, it says here, devices and software to imitate employee activity. I'm sitting here recording something using my computer, right? And then my next activity would be to use software to edit it and to render it, and then the other software to upload it to YouTube, and then YouTube uses software. But I'm sitting at a computer actually doing something productive. Yes, I move my mouse around, I click on the keyboard, right? Devices and software to imitate employee activity, sometimes known as mouse movers or mouse jigglers, took off during the pandemic-spurred work-from-home era, so they were working at home especially so nobody could peek over their shoulder. Like, are they working in a cubicle or an office with glass and the manager can walk by and see what they're really doing? I'm thinking when I worked for that internationally known, internationally operating, I worked in a cubicle. If the manager wanted to peek at me from behind to see if I was doing anything, no problem. Took off during with people swapping tips for using them on social media. Oh, this one I found, it's really good. It does on Reddit and TikTok. Such gadgets are available on Amazon for less than $20. Now there's more, but so there's another tab I have here. Tesla investors back most $56 billion. Oh, 56. Do you think he knows how to do all of his own investment in figuring out? Oh, but here's the second one. Wells Fargo fires employees over mouse jigglers. So when I was looking at this, the interesting thing was this. Based on 4-star customer ratings, this one here, undetectable metal USB mouse mover with switch button, automatic mouse shaker with 2 jiggle modes, mouse simulator, $9. How about this one? These all sound like they were made in China or undetectable mouse. Oh, I think what this is you take the mouse and you put it on there. You know, and it's got a, in the early days it had a ball that rolled around in there, but now, you know, it's an LED thing. But if that LED thing were reflected off of like the texture of that and it was moving, undetectable mouse mover jiggler with on-off switch and USB port, drive free. In other words, your computer detects it when you plug it in, and the software your computer needs to do it gets downloaded automatically as part of the driver for that device. Computers are so great, especially Windows computers. Simulate physical automatic, blah, blah. And then, oh, this one looks very similar to this one, right? So I'm just showing you pictures of them because that's what I got out of this article, which is essentially repeating the same thing. Okay, but it had pictures. Now remember, in the early era of hybrid work, with employees splitting their time between 2 days in the office and 3 days working remotely, employers have ramped up using productivity monitoring software. See, now we get, I talked about the manager looking over the back of my cubicle to see if I'm actually doing anything. They don't need to do that. Everybody's on a network using productivity monitoring software. However, employees have outsmarted some of the surveillance programs with gadgets like mouse movers, otherwise known as mouse jigglers. So the automated watch you over the network, because you have to log in through you're working from home. I used to do that. It was the very earliest use of the VPNs. I'm talking about 2 decades ago. Well, you're coming in, they can monitor that packet traffic. They can see what you're doing by having I'll call it a reverse simulator. Because there are unique packets that are talking about what are mouse movements, and they've got some spyware on your computer at home that gets automatically, I'm guessing, reading between the lines. You log in through the virtual private network from home, and there's a handshake process that you are really who you are, and they're checking out that it's your computer really. They have ways. And then, without telling you, they've put certain proprietary sneak software on your computer that run, and they can activate it, and it's a productivity monitor. But they don't have to tell you anything, because they do the same thing to you when you're in your cubicle at work. At home and at work, when you're logged in and on the clock, it's the same thing, right? The only difference is the distance, if you understand what I mean. Okay. And this article, says that it was a disclosure to the financial regulatory industry regulatory. Hang on, let's just do that, and then I'll get to the thing. FINRA, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, Wikipedia, headquarters, Washington, D.C., and it is FINRA. I thought they took me to the wrong thing. First you saw the website, but is a private American corporation that acts as a self-regulatory organization that regulates members of brokerage firms and exchange markets. So what that's telling us is, yes, you think of Wells Fargo with a credit card, Wells Fargo with your savings account, or a CD, but they also are in the business of advising people on investment, and essentially they are a brokerage firm in that unit. And therefore they would kind of come under a different set of laws than how bank accounts per se would be handled. Remember, I'm just an idiot running my mouth. National Association of Security Dealers, predecessor 1939 to 2007. Why would that have been founded in 1939, which is the end of the Depression? Why did we have a depression? Was it the stock market crash a decade earlier? FINRA, FINRA is the successor to the National Association of Security Dealers, NASD, as well as to the member Regulation Enforcement and Arbitration of the New York Stock Exchange, U.S. government agency that acts as a ultimate regulator of the U.S. including FINRA is the, okay, so they come under the purview of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. And I'm glad they mentioned the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. I haven't read this before. Now, where am I going? Banking, this is the Wayback Machine. We're watching porn. Banking regulators were watching porn. Think about the Wells Fargo people who are in the investment advisement business, right? Big money. Report from CNN. Security and Exchange Commission staffers. This FINRA stuff that they had to, that Wells Fargo reported this to, is under the auspices, but not owned by, the United States Security and Exchange Commission, the United States government. Report, the Security and Exchange Commission staffers watched porn as economy crashed. So it wasn't mouse jigglers. The mouse jigglers are just the downstream thing. Yes, people who work in big companies, all their activity going out to the internet is, I know from direct experience when I worked for that big internationally operating IT company, that they buy a service that gets loaded into their network to check out if anybody is from work is looking at porn out there. I can think of a specific incident when our product seemed to crash because they did that vendor came in and did an update and did it wrong, and then their regular activities all got started marking as he's trying to look at porn. And they called us thinking it was our fault. I helped track it down. And then when they got them back in and they put the right set of criteria in there, it all went away. So, you want to know why they do it now? Only they don't have mouse jiggler watchers. But yes, they do now. SEC's, all right, Security and Exchange Commission investigation. Dozens of employees, contractors surfed porn sites on work computers. April 23rd, 2010. The Street, April 23rd, 2010. While the financial world crashed, many regulators at the Securities and Exchange Commission were busy surfing the web for porn. We're going back to 2010. Ever wonder why government regulators didn't see the financial crisis coming? It turned out that their eyes were focused elsewhere. While the financial world crashed, many regulators at the Securities and Exchange Commission were busy surfing the web for porn. Lots and lots of porn. One SEC accountant had hundreds of pornographic pictures saved on her computer. Another had tried to log on to porn sites an incredible 16,000 times in a single month. To put that in perspective, that if a person worked 200 hours that month, then that meant that employee tried to look at porn for more than 1.3 times every minute of the workday. So at least for the people who were working from home during the pandemic, they could be out playing in the yard, mowing the lawn like I did earlier today in 90-degree heat, while their thing is their little toys in there jiggling the mouse around, fooling the bank back at Central Intelligence. You understand what I'm saying? "17 of the offenders were senior Securities and Exchange Commission officers with salaries ranging from $100,000 to $220,000. No, these employees weren't great at imposing regulations, but man, were they good at breaking them. One worker managed to disable a filter on the Office web browser. Another bought a flash drive to get around the cyber barrier." Now, whatever they're talking about, I have no idea. The Washington Post points out that some of the cases, including an executive at the National Science Foundation who spent at least 331 days looking at pornography on his government computer. But hey, at least they didn't travel across state lines with a personal escort like a certain big name financial regulator. Wait a minute. I didn't know that one. But hey, at least they didn't travel across state lines with a personal escort like a certain big name financial regulator. Oh, you know what this is? That's going to MSNBC, that's a mental illness website. The article is, it's all the thing now that in order to make sure that your contacts are encrypted, there's no more HTTP. It's HTTPS. But it looks like avant-garde MSNBC still serves up older stuff. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's not the reason why. It is HTTPS. Oh, this is even better. Talk about people who are sitting in the corner with mouse jigglers watching porn, or whatever it is they're doing. You know what this one is? This is the first time I'm going. Why did my browser stop me? I thought at first it was because we were going to go to something that was like from 2010, and that's on a server that hasn't been updated, and it's got all the... No, that's not what it is. You see, to do HTTPS, you have to have a certificate with a public key and a private key. And whoever you're talking to also has that. And they use the keys to negotiate the encryption key so that then when the conversation between the two goes on, everything, all the data load is actually encrypted and you have to negotiate it, but the certificate also verifies that you're who you say you are and can be traced all the way back to the ultimate issuer in case you're trying to be a faker. And this says net error cert common name invalid. It means the certificate has expired. But they don't really care because they're the guys who are the system administrators are using mouse jigglers and they're watching porn instead. Or something like that. This is beautiful. So we aren't going to follow that link. That's great. I was going to find. Well, what happened in 2010? Financial world crashed. Hang on. And it says, what caused the financial crisis of 2008? Falling U.S. house prices and the derivative debacle. The derivative debacle, where the banks were selling these derivatives that were stacked together with AAA all the way down to triple whatever the shit is. And when the what's that? You don't have to pay any interest at first, kind of mortgage financing, and then that sector, and they never were really looking closely at what the composition of the derivatives was. And the people who were supposed to be on the ball checking that stuff, who were they? SEC? Oh no, they were watching porn. It was too complicated for them to actually delve into that stuff. It was beyond their IQ quota. Yeah, that's actually what happened. That's why they were watching the porn. Because I remember reading an article where they said that one of the reasons why they ended up is because what the financial markets were doing, all these things they were doing, was beyond their ability to learn and understand and actually investigate. So they just collected their salary and sat at their thing and just let it go, watching porn. Yes, go check it out. It's just the same thing. Those people are effectively doing the same thing, most likely for the same reason. Yeah. And what have we got on the stage now? I haven't checked this out. Hang on. Here's an article that just came up since I started talking. Why Americans are buying Biden's strong economy propaganda. Doug Casey on how the climate hysteria is lowering your standard of living. OpenAI expands lobbying army to influence regulation. Federal judge blocks ATF rule of expanding definition of gun dealer. G7 leaders to use frozen Russian assets to back next tranche mortgage derivative tranches in 2008. The subprime mortgage crisis. See, I hit the right word. This is how my mind works. The American subprime mortgage crisis was a multinational financial crisis that occurred between 2007 and 2010 that contributed to the 2007 and 8 global financial crisis. The crisis led to a severe economic recession with millions of people losing their jobs and many businesses going bankrupt. The U.S. government intervened with a series of measures to stabilize the financial system, which they're doing now anyway, right? It was triggered by a large decline in U.S. home prices after the collapse of the housing bubble, leading to mortgage delinquencies, foreclosures, and devaluation of housing-related securities. The housing bubble preceded the crisis, was financed by mortgage-backed securities and collateralized debt obligations, which initially offered higher interest rates, better returns than government securities, along with attractive risk ratings. The derivative is based on, let's say, 10,000 mortgages. Somebody rated the derivative as A+, not AAA, but when you looked inside of some of them, it shouldn't have been A+, it should have been C+, which means a greater risk of you losing your money. Which initially offered higher interest rates, better returns, while elements in the crisis first became more visible in 2007, several major financial institutions collapsed in September 2008. Two proximate causes were the rise in subprime lending. Actually, your salary, we shouldn't really be giving you a mortgage at all. Are you kidding? But somebody over here has got a lot of excess money and needs to put it somewhere, and they're trusting us as advisors, more mouse jigglers, to know where to put that money. And actually, all the really good credit people that we could trust, they're all tanked up, and we're looking for new people to lend to. Remember, I'm just an idiot. I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. Housing speculation increased with the share of mortgage or origination investors. It kept going up, going up. So that's the reason why we should be concerned about the fact that Wells Fargo Bank how big is this is where there's a lot of mouse jigglers in the investment arm. Wells Fargo is the third largest bank, holding over $1.7 trillion in assets. Is Wells Fargo the largest bank in the United States? The top 5 banks in America are J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, and U.S. Bank. Oh, I thought Wells Fargo was the biggest one. If Wells Fargo is 1.3 trillion, how big is this? Do they have mouse jigglers too? Are we going to hear things about that also? J.P. Morgan Chase is not only one of the largest banks in the United States from multiple aspects, it's one of the leading financial institutions worldwide. In 2022, its market capitalization reached around $393 billion, making it the largest. That's capitalization, that's the stock value. Mouse jigglers. Now, they said at Wells Fargo. Now, here's my question. If it's happening at Wells Fargo, there's no reason to believe it's happening anywhere else. True or false? What do you think? Huh? What do you think? Who do you bank with? Steve A.B. Foyle. Remember, I'm an idiot. I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of using my Wayback Machine in here, thinking how, in a way, similar this is to what happened in 2008. The Big Short. I remember when I read that book. You saw the movie. Did you read the book? How did that work? How did that work? What was the basis of this? This guy right here, character. What was that? How did it work? Which bank did he go to? Which bank did he go to? The Big Short is a 2015 American biographical crime comedy, right? It's based on the 2010 book, The Big Short, Inside the Doomsday Machine. The Big Short. The Big Short, Inside the Doomsday Machine is a non-fiction book by Michael Lewis, one of my heroes, about the buildup of the United States housing bubble during the 2000s. The Big Short describes several of the main players in the creation of the credit default swap based on derivatives, who sought to bet against collateralized debt obligations. Well, they use that phrase, collateralized, the derivatives. And what the big boy in there that set this off did is that he went to these big banks and he says, I want to bet against your derivatives. And they laughed. You want to bet against these AAA housing mortgage derivatives? Yeah. If it goes south, and I'm in these, I want you to pay me for what I lose when the market goes south. And they laughed. And he said, how much is the insurance premium? And they go, this is, and the smirkers went, oh, this is easy money. So he went around to these different banks and they put these bets, and they smirked the ones that are the kind of people who are I'm talking about the kind of people who are the mouse jigglers that we're talking about. Those are the people he talked to. That kind of people. And they smirked. And they said, sure. And they told him how much the premium would be. And he made a fortune. Because he knew it was going to crash. And he said, you have to put it in escrow. What does that mean? That means you have to show me that not only are you taking my premium, but you have set aside capital you have in a safe thing, not committed to anything else, that if you have to pay off on this bet, you will actually have the money. Well, that'll cost a little bit more in the premium. How much is the premium? He made a fortune. Because they did pay off. Because the money was in escrow. It wasn't in play. Remember, I'm an idiot and I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. And I read that book around 2012 and I'm just remembering it as best I can. Steve AB4L, just letting his mind wander and brainstorming a little bit. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Saying see you in 73.